not arisen formerly now arises, they know this. If an internal formation which has arisen formerly now comes to an end and will not arise again, they know this. The same is true with all the other sense organs, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind. If bhikkhus or bhikkhunis meditate on objects of mind as objects of mind according to these instructions, then they know how to dwell in the practice of observing objects of mind as objects of mind in the 6 realms of consciousness. Further, bhikkhunis, when the practitioner is meditating on objects of mind as objects of mind, if they see sensual desire in themselves, they know without any doubt that sensual desire is there. If they see no sensual desire in themselves, they know without any doubt that no sensual desire is there. If a sensual desire which has not arisen formerly now arises, they know this without any doubt. If a sensual desire which had arisen formerly now comes to an end, they also know this without any doubt. The same is true of the 4 other obstacles: anger, torpor, agitation, and doubt. If bhikkhus or bhikkhunis meditate on objects of mind as objects of mind according to the details of these instructions, then they know how to dwell in the practice of observing objects of mind as objects of mind with regard to the 5 obstacles. Further, bhikkhus, when the practitioner is meditating on objects of mind as objects of mind, if they see in their mind the factor of awakening, mindfulness, they know without any doubt that mindfulness is there. When mindfulness is not present, they know without a doubt that mindfulness is not present. When mindfulness, which had formerly not been present, is now present, the practitioner also knows this without any doubt. When mindfulness had arisen and is still present, is not loss, does not decline, but increases, the practitioner is also aware of all this. The same is true of all the other factors of awakening: the investigation of dharmas, energy, joy, ease, concentration, and equanimity. This is how the practitioner is aware of objects of mind as objects of mind, both the inside of the object and the outside of the object, and establishes mindfulness in the object of mind with understanding, insight, clarity, and realization, and that is called being aware of objects of mind as objects of mind. If bhikkhus or bhikkhunis meditate on objects of mind as objects of mind according to these instructions, then they know how to dwell in the practice of meditating on objects of mind as objects of mind with regard to the 7 factors of awakening. After the Lord Buddha had spoken, the bhikkhus and bhikkhunis who heard him teach were delighted and endeavored to carry out the practice. We will return to noble silence until service begins.
Hello, how's it going? My name is Sonshin. I use they, them pronouns. I just wanted to welcome you all here. Happy Pride Month. Happy Dad Day. I just wanted to give a couple courtesy announcements before we start. First, if you do need to step away for any reason, we do have a downstairs just through those curtains. Just turn past Bodhidharma there and they'll lead the way. There's also there's a bathroom down there as well. There's a little kitchen, dinette, some seats if you need some space. We also ask that during the service that we don't walk in front of the dais. And also when we enter, we give a bow. And when we leave, we give a bow. I like to say that we don't enter sacred spaces, we create them together. So that's a big part of that we do. See if I missed anything. No, we should be good. So why don't we stand up and greet each other? Oh, that's what I forgot, the incense offering. We'll do that. And why don't we do this while standing? I'm going to mess it all up today. But can I have our incense greeters come up? There's no right way to do it, just a bunch of wrong ways. In gratitude, we offer this incense throughout space and time to all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. May it be fragrant as earth herself, reflecting careful efforts, wholehearted awareness, and the fruit of understanding, slowly ripening. May we and all beings be companions of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. May we awaken from forgetfulness and realize our true home. Together, we'll turn to page 7 and we'll do the 3 refuges. I go for refuge to Buddha, my deeply awakened mind, the living source of understanding and compassion, which must be cultivated to be known fully. I go for refuge to Dharma, the path of mindful living, leading to healing, joy, and enlightenment, the way of peace, which must be cultivated to be known fully. I go for refuge to Sangha, the loving and supportive community of practice, realizing harmony, awareness, and liberation, which must be cultivated to be known fully. I am aware that the 3 jewels are within my heart. I vow to realize them. I vow to understand living beings in their suffering. I vow to cultivate loving kindness and compassion, and to practice joy and equanimity. I vow to live simply and sanely, content with few possessions, and to keep my body healthy. I vow to let go of all worry and anxiety in order to be light and free. I am aware that I owe so much to my parents, teachers, friends, and all beings. I vow to be worthy of their trust, to practice wholeheartedly, so that understanding and compassion will flower, and I can help living beings be free from their suffering. May the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha support my efforts. May the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha support my efforts. May the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha support my efforts.
And then if you'll turn to the next page, we'll be doing the Heart Sutra.
From the deep practice of prajna, paramita, received the emptiness of all five skandhas, and delivered all beings from their suffering. O Shariputra, form is no other than emptiness, emptiness no other than form. Form is emptiness, emptiness form. The same is true of feeling, thought, impulse, and consciousness. O Shariputra, all dharmas are empty. They are not born nor annihilated. They are not defiled nor immaculate. They do not increase nor decrease. So in emptiness, no form, no feeling, no thought, no impulse, no consciousness. No eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind. No form, sound, smell, taste, touch, or objects of mind. No realm of sight, no realm of consciousness, no ignorance, nor extinction of ignorance, no old age and death, nor extinction of them, no suffering, no cause of suffering, no cease from suffering, no path to lead out of suffering, no knowledge, no attainment, no realization, for there is nothing to attain. The Bodhisattva holds on to nothing but prajna, paramita. Therefore the mind is clear of any delusive hindrance. Without hindrance there is no fear. Away from all perverted views, one reaches final nirvana. All Buddhas of past, present, and future, through faith in prajna, paramita, attain to the highest perfect enlightenment. Know then the prajna, paramita, is the great Dharani, the radiant fearless mantram, the utmost supreme mantram, which is capable of allaying all pain. This is true beyond all doubt. Proclaim now the highest Parasangate Bodhisattvas. Gate, gate, paragate, parasangate Bodhisattvas. Prajna Paramita Hridaya Sutra.
You can be seated. How's everybody doing? Good. So my talk's gonna be a little bit different today. I'm hoping it won't go too long. We'll see. Usually we do a talk followed by a time of meditation, but I kind of want to intersperse our meditation within our talk a little bit, and you'll see why in a little bit here. So I actually want to dedicate this talk to B. I think about 5 months ago. When was your first time here? About 4 months ago? Okay. Our very first conversation, they asked me about some of the Bodhisattvas in Buddhism, wanted to know some more about it. And so it only took me about 4 months, but I figured it's about time I'll talk about them. So if any of you have any questions for me, just give me at least 5 months. So I wanted to talk about Bodhisattvas in Buddhism. It's very easy to draw parallels to deities and other religions. Hopefully, as you'll see going forward, that might not be the most honest parallel to draw. There are 8 in total. Don't ask me to name them all, but I will name the main 3. So there are the 3 Bodhisattvas, the main 3, that are said to kind of rule over the earthly realm, as well as to represent 3 aspects of the Buddha himself. And those 3 that we'll be talking about today are Manjushri, Avalokiteshvara, and Vajrapani. So I'm going to go through one at a time, and we can see if we can kind of tie it together a little bit here. So the very first Bodhisattva I'd like to talk about is Manjushri. And I have our little handout here because hopefully you can take this with you and remember everything I'm going to blab about today. Manjushri gets the honor of being the very first Bodhisattva. They're also said to be the one that invented the Bodhisattva vow. And if you aren't quite sure what that is, it's a vow that some Buddhists take to withhold their own enlightenment until the entirety of the universe can be enlightened together. So they're the ones sort of holding the door so nobody gets left behind, if you will. The other sort of important thing about this is that means that these bodhisattvas aren't necessarily like gods above us, but they're here down with us. They're not separate from the causes and conditions. They're not perfect by any means. And in their stories, lots of them, have hard times, just like any of us would. Manjushri translates to meaning gentle glory, which I really, really like. So often when we hear the word glory, we think of, blaring lights and angels like blaring horns down on us. But it's kind of nice to see this gentle sort of glory, almost like the sort of calm over the water and seeing the ripples, And it's just, it really that sometimes hits harder than, the blaring horns sometimes. And they're known as the Bodhisattva of wisdom. So they are supposed to represent all of the wisdom aspects of the Buddha. This is partly my own theory of why Buddhism personifies all of these aspects into deities or gods or bodhisattvas. We have to remember that through most of human history, literacy was very low. And so, if you wanted to teach people, writing it down wasn't necessarily the best way to go about it. But having stories, having images, is a really great way that no matter how old you are or what your education level is, you can hide a lot of these messages into a sort of a compact thing. You might not remember, the stories, what wisdom is, but you can see a picture of Manjushri and say, yes, that's going to be my sort of shorthand to go to, as well as a good point of focus when you need to sort of pull from wisdom. So we have an image of Manjushri, which there, of all the other bodhisattvas, I've seen the littlest amount of variation. They're almost always in the same pose and look exactly the same. And the first thing you'll see is they have got their hand risen up in the air holding a big sword that may or may not be on fire. But it's gentle. It's a gentle sword. And this is supposed to represent the cutting down of delusion, getting right to the point of things. Also sort of cutting away any ideas of non-duality, all is one. On their other hand, they're usually holding a lotus flower blooming up. And when the lotus opens up, it might be hard to see in my picture because it's not very big, but there's a little book that's just setting. It's a sutra book. So of all the bodhisattvas, this is definitely the book nerd of them all. When you need to sort of evoke that just wisdom, when you have a really hard problem, you're like, I just need to think, like, what is the best way to deal with this? I need to maybe open the sutras and do some studying. This is really the bodhisattva that we're evoking. With all these bodhisattvas, they also have mantras associated with them. And usually these mantras are chanted not so much to summon these deities, but to sort of evoke the power of them. I said that trying to say that these bodhisattvas are like gods is not really a good way to see them. Most of the time in these stories, they don't sort of descend down separate from us, but the people around us, it's, aha, I was Manjushri all along. Even their origin stories, they usually start as ordinary people, and then through parts of their lives, they sort of embody these aspects and transform into these people along. So I like to think that Manjushri, this aspect of wisdom, isn't something that you are calling down upon to come upon you, but you're trying to evoke these aspects that are in with all of us. There's Manjushri is part of all of us. We can in moments transform into Manjushri. And you may have had moments when the people around you have shown that really pure wisdom. And you're like, oh, there's Manjushri around you. They have, of course, being the nerd of the bunch, the most nerdy mantra. It is Om Arapakana Din. And this one I have to pull out my phone for because it can't just be simple with Manjushri. So this mantra is a whole teaching folded in within itself. It uses symbolatry, so each symbol of the mantra represents a longer word. So first we'll talk about Om. All of the mantras begin with Om, and this is a sacred symbol that is older than Buddhism itself. This was floating around India long before Siddhartha ever started his teachings. And there's not really a clear translation for Om in English. Sometimes it's just sort of this, behold, like we're ready, setting the stage for this mantra. I've heard teachings that within the Om, you start with a big Om all the way to the very closed Oo. And within that is every possible word of the human language sort of encapsulated into one. So it's almost like this everythingness, this oneness. I've also heard a teaching by the Dalai Lama that the represents the three aspects of the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha, and the Buddha. But it's just a nice way to open it all up, I think, too. So whether or not you want to make it a magical symbol or just a way to say, hey, we're about to say something here, it's up to you. The last syllable, din, is sort of a period. Like, we're done now. We're done with this mantra. We're going to start over. So all the mantras have this sort of opening and the ending, and then we've got all the meat in the middle. It's tofu, vegan meat. So we have the Arapakana. Arapakana. And like I said, it can't just be easy with Manjushri. They're the book nerd. They like, lots of really deep imagery and how can I say a lot with a few words? So we have which is short for Adya Antutpantavad. I hope I said that right. Which means it translates directly to the door, the insight that all dharmas are unproduced from the very beginning. So the Dharma, which if you were my last talk, it's a whole thing. But this isn't something that, has a beginning or an end. It's just always there from the very beginning. The second syllable, Ra, short for Rajas, is a door to the insight that all dharmas are without dirt. So they don't necessarily have a fixed form. So already not only getting into the Dharma, but a little bit of emptiness here too. No beginning, no sort of dirt to it. Then we have Pa, which is for Paramartha, which is a door to insight that all dharmas have been expounded in the ultimate sense. Then we have Ka for Kyavana, which is the insight to the rebirth of any dharmas cannot be apprehended because all dharmas do not decrease, nor are they reborn. And then the last syllable, Na, is a door to Nama, which is the names of all dharmas are vanished. The essential nature behind names cannot be gained or lost. So there's a whole lot to sort of comprehend in there. And I'm pretty sure you could spend just about your entire practice trying to comprehend what Manjushri was talking about with the Arapakana. It's a whole teaching on emptiness and the dharmas. And it's fitting that they pick a whole sutra folded into their mantra to evoke them. Because if you thrive from really diving into the teachings, reading, really trying to, parse through, then I think Manjushri is somebody that you should be evoking. One last thing about the image of Manjushri is they're almost always depicted as a really young boy. And they say that the reason that is the case is because it's this wisdom that's not something that's earned over time. You're not like an old sage or a professor, but almost that sort of wisdom that you see even in a child. It's just innate. It's always there. The Dharma that has no beginning, which I think is really kind of cool too. So I want to do our first bit of meditation here, and I want to take some time to recite the mantra of wisdom. And that's where I'm going to bring my malas into this. You've probably seen a lot of us wear these. Some of you may have them on you. They mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people and a lot of different Buddhists. Just like the syllable Om, the mala predates Buddhism. These were floating around long before Buddha was around on earth. For some Buddhists, if you were to ask somebody in Zen like myself, we would probably tell you it's just a device to count with. It's basically a calculator. And for some Buddhists, it is a very sacred relic that we imbue with the power of the Bodhisattvas. The energy is contained within them, and we carry this around so that we can show that love to others. And for some Buddhists, it says it's a symbol that we're in a secret club. If you see somebody else wearing it, I see you. You're a Buddhist too. I think it's a little bit of all those, maybe something else. It's whatever it needs to be for you. On the mala, there's 108 beads, along with this fancy one. It's the guru bead here. Again, there's a lot of meaning behind the mala, and the number 108 has been 108 since before the Buddha was even born. So long that nobody is actually really sure why there's 108 beads. It's just sort of always been that way. I've heard a lot of people come up with reasons why. It could be that there's 108 delusions that we need to conquer before we can achieve enlightenment. I've heard people say there's 108 teachings. There's a lot of people who do the deep numerology about the significance of it. But my absolute favorite reasoning for the 108 that I've ever heard is that actually the right number is 100. And they've added the extra 8 because in case we mess up a few times, or we skip a beat here and there, they've got us covered. And I really like that one, especially because I tend to mess up every now and then. So I did these with the Bodhisattva class, and at the end we said, okay, we're all within 8 beads of each other. Cool, we did it. You don't need this. If you can count, fine. You don't have to do 108 of these recitations. As a matter of fact, we're not going to do 108 because I think we'd run out of time. We're going to try to do 27, which is the amount of bells that we ring at the beginning, if you've ever tried to count along. And it's because of the 108. You cut it in half, and you've got 54. And you cut that in half, we got our 27. I think I did that math right. So we're going to do 27 of each of these. And we're not just going to chant just mindlessly. You don't even have to chant if you don't feel like it. But when we chant this, we're going to chant this to try to evoke the powers of Manjushri. Maybe you need some extra wisdom in your life. There's something that you need to sort of work through, and taking that sort of analytical route is the way to do it. Or maybe that's the kind of teacher that you need right now. You have a lot of really hard decisions to make, and just sitting there and your feelings isn't going to work it out. You need to have a hard, concrete, like, is it this path or this path sort of answer here? And so if that's you, maybe this is the sort of energy that we need to fill. Or maybe you're the teacher. Maybe you have somebody coming to you and you really need the sort of Manjushri answer. You have a friend saying, hey, I'm in a dilemma. Please get me out of this. And they don't need I'll give you a hug answer. They need okay, this is how we do it. What if we did this, this, and this? So if that's the sort of energy that you need right now, that's what I want you to channel. And hopefully we can evoke a little bit of that gentle glory in all of us and just be a little bit wiser after this. So I'll keep track so that you all don't have to. If you do have a mala and you would like to count along, feel free. As long as we end within 8 of each other, we should be fine. And again, you have it written in front of you, but that's Om Arapakana Din. And we'll do it 27 times. Okay? And if you don't feel like chanting, you can picture Manjushri in your head. Or if you don't feel comfortable with that, just think, I need some wisdom right now. Om Arapakana Din. 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 Anybody counting along? Were we within 8? We did it. All right, I'm gonna move to I shouldn't have favorites in Buddhism, but I secretly do. This is Avalokitesvara. This is actually one that I always keep around my neck, so we could always use a little bit of compassion. Of all of the bodhisattvas, they're the one that has probably the most variation in how they're depicted, which will make sense moving forward just because of their story, because they're kind of a shapeshifter. We also have an altar to Avalokitesvara, all the way to the end there in the blue, also known as Guan Yin in China. So you may know them as Guan Yin. In the Japanese school, they're known as Kannon or Kanzeon. But Avalokitesvara is the original Sanskrit or Pali. I'm not quite sure which. And it translates to Lord who gazes down at the world. And they're the bodhisattva of compassion. They have a really cool story, which I'm going to have to say really quickly because I want to make sure I can get to all of them today. So, like I said, they were pretty much just an average, ordinary person to begin with, a monk. And they decided to take on the Bodhisattva vow, the same one that Manjushri came up with. Of course, the book nerd comes up with the ideas, and we have to follow along. And as they decided to, try to reduce all the suffering of the world, they realized just how much suffering there was. And, all the suffering coming into their ears and their eyes and breathing it all in. It said that they absolutely failed and their head exploded. And so in the story, Abu Buddha comes down and says, "Oh no, your head exploded." And so I'm going to put it back together and I'm going to grow 11 more heads on top. So if you look at the picture of Avalokitesvara, they got a whole stacks of heads. And with all these newfound heads, they could finally hear and speak to and see all the suffering of the world. The only problem was they only had 2 arms. And when they tried to reach out to help, their arms exploded. And so Amitabha Buddha was like, not again. It was like, I got an idea. I'm going to give you 1,000 arms that you can reach out to all the people and all the suffering of the world. And if you look here, we've got so many arms, you can't even count them all, arrayed almost in like a halo all around their body. The other cool thing about how Avalokitesvara is depicted is if you see in all their hands, they're usually holding a whole variety of objects, including in this one, they've got some mala beads in there too. And there's a huge variety in what they're holding. That's not usually set. I've heard that in some modern day Avalokitesvaras, they are even holding like iPhones and things like that. Because today, if you need to reach out to the world, that's probably the best way to do it. But my favorite part of their story is their failure, because a lot of times we take in a lot and just the idea that they literally failed. I'm weary of these sort of perfect heroes. I think Superman is boring. They never lose. And I think a part of that compassion is knowing that, we may fail and the people around us may fail, and knowing what that feels like and having that empathy. Sometimes, when you're going through something hard and somebody comes out and be like, I don't know how this feels. That would never happen to me, but I'm here for you, isn't what we need to hear. The other thing about Avalokitesvara is that they are, Happy Pride Month, probably the queerest of all of the deities. They represent a shapeshifter. So they kind of take the form of whatever they need to be for this compassion. Sometimes they're depicted, as this sort of multi-headed, multi-armed monstrosity. Sometimes, they're in the female form, sitting there with medicine ready to help. Sometimes they're in the male form. And sometimes they're both. There are depictions of Avalokitesvara with a full beard and breast at the same time. And the idea, I think, in contrast to Manjushri, when we get into the wisdom and the analytical side, like this is the right answer, Manjushri doesn't really waver a whole lot in their form. But Avalokitesvara sort of accompanies the idea that compassion is whatever you need to be in that moment. If you've tried to come to somebody who needs compassion with the I know what's right now, and that's not what they need, you've felt that failure, the failure of Manjushri, when you just need to be what they need to be in that moment. It's that idea of being fluid to help the ones around you. That is sort of the energies that Avalokitesvara encompasses. Their mantra is one of the most famous in Buddhism, and it's Om, the same Om that we talked about. And it ends in hum, which is another really common ending syllable. But the middle of it is Mani Padme. So Om, Mani Padme Hum. And of course, instead of having this huge, intricate, Dharma teaching of a mantra, they simply have this really poetic imagery, which is the jewel and the lotus, which I really, really like because it kind of gives a really nice image. I don't know if any of you have been to Meyer Garden, and they have a Japanese Zen garden there. And if you go into the pond, there's a lot of lotus flowers in there. I've heard a lot of people trying to make sense of what the jewel and the lotus means. I've had some people say that represents, the soul and the body. I've heard some people it's just the purity, and the jewel is the jewels of the Dharma and the Sangha and the Buddha. As I've sat with this mantra over the last several weeks, there's something else that has come to me. The imagery of the lotus, just like a lot of the things that we're talking about, is a lot older than Buddhism. If you think about where lotuses grow, they usually grow in swamps or piles of mud, places you wouldn't want to go swimming. And when they arise out of the mud, they're perfectly undefiled, like not a speck on them. And the contrast, the like beautiful pinks and purity. So they become the sort of shorthand for purity in a lot of Indian mythology and culture. And for me, the behold the jewel and the lotus is a mantra that gives me instant compassion, because when I'm interacting with other people, especially people that I can't immediately see eye to eye on, I think, you know what? In every pile of mud, there's that possibility of that pure lotus to arise. And if I can see everybody as that lotus that can open up in the muck, immediately that helps, melt away everything and just leaves compassion. So when you need that, when there's somebody that's rubbing you wrong, or, you don't really see eye to eye on, or you're like, I have to vote for who this fall, just think, even in those piles of mud, there's possibility for a jewel in the lotus to arise. I really love evoking Avalokitesvara, because I think we can all use a little bit of compassion, and it's that compassion without attachment to the results, right? It's not that hard manjushri, there's a right answer here. It's, you know what, I'm just going to be here now and be whatever I need to be here now. And whether or not I have to be, bearded with boobs or a multi-armed monster, whatever I need to be in the moment, I'm going to do that. And so we're going to take some time to do the mantra of compassion. Om Mani Padme Hum. And again, if you need a teacher of compassion, you just need somebody to be there for you when you're having a hard time. Or maybe you need to be compassionate. You need to let go all of your, I have the right answer, don't go back to him. That's a bad idea. But you know what? That's not what you need right now. You just need me to support you. That's the Avalokitesvara. So Om Mani Padme Hum. And let's make sure that we all end with an 8, or just follow along. Om Mani Padme Hum. 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 Last but not least, we have Vajrapani. Vajrapani translates to Vajra in hand. And I'm going to show you what we're talking about here. Hopefully you can see it. I should have printed out another picture. But they're holding what looks like a little scepter or like a little dumbbell. And it's known as a Vajra. And it's supposed to represent power and strength. I've heard Vajra translates to thunder and lightning or a diamond. There's also some parallels between Vajrapani and some of the gods, such as like Thor or Zeus with their lightning bolt. So this idea of this wielder of thunder goes very, very ancient into human mythology and thought. Who knows where it started? And they're the Bodhisattva of activity, power, and protection. They're one of the Bodhisattvas that actually was said to have lived alongside Buddha during their life. And they were, according to the stories, present during Buddha's birth. They were living in the palace with the Buddha. And when the Buddha decided to escape the palace, of course, I always thought, like, how does this, little 18-year-old kid who's been pampered his whole life, how does he escape all the guards? Well, the story says that Vajrapani actually busted him out of there. He broke down the walls and was like, we're leaving. So he was alongside the Buddha the entire way. The representation of Vajrapanis are usually pretty giant and a little intimidating looking, usually covered in flames, and holding up the Vajra, which is really important. They also have very dark skin, usually a black or a dark purple. In Indian mythology, I'll say darker the skin represents power. So that's just show how powerful that they are. They're also never sitting. Their feet must be getting tired because you always see the other ones, peacefully contemplating. And Vajrapani is like, we're going. I don't know if it's this picture here, but there's one of my favorite pictures of Vajrapani where he's like literally behind them, like in his stance. And then you see Manjushri just sitting calmly and Avalokitesvara sitting calmly. And I like to think that this is the teacher that you evoke when you just need a kick in the ass. So often we get stuck in the books. We get a little too of the Manjushri moments, trying to figure things out. And sometimes we're just trying to be really, compassionate about things. But until you can get off of your cushion and start moving, everything else is pointless. Everything that we do should lead us to being compassionate people. And that takes action. Dharma itself is action. It's not enough just to understand it and to feel it. We need to get up and give some motion to it. My favorite story of Vajrapani is upon the Parinirvana, Buddha's death. It said that Vajrapani for the first time dropped his Vajra and it hit the ground and he fell to the ground and started rolling around in the dirt. I really love this because Vajrapani it's not just about, that sort of, we got to be strong at any case, but it's also, we need to feel our feelings. When it's time to mourn, get down in the dirt and mourn. It's not about holding it together. It's just about that action and moving. The Buddha died. We should feel it. And so if you just need to work through some grief and mourning, maybe Vajrapani is somebody to call upon. Maybe it's not about, it's going to be okay, that compassion. It's not about, well, there's a way that we can work, we can get through this. It's just, no, we need to roll around in the mud for a little bit. So the cool thing about their mantras, where you have Manjushri, that's this really complicated teaching on emptiness and Dharma. We have Avalokitesvara, which is this beautiful imagery of a lotus, arising from the mud. Vajrapani says, just say my name and I'll show up. Their mantra is literally just Om, Vajrapani, Hum. When you need that protection and power, just call upon that Vajrapani. The other cool thing about their imagery, and I really think Buddhism should probably sue Marvel at this point, they're kind of the Hulk. A lot of times they're pictured just as, a regular old guy. And when they need to Hulk up, they transform into this big, blue monster and back again. Very Hulk-like. um, so again, when you need some of that Vajrapani, you're feeling stagnant. You're feeling like I need to get up and do things. I'm having a hard time moving on with my day. I need that kick in the butt sometimes. Or maybe you just need some protection because you're going through something really hard. You don't need an answer. You don't need a hug or a hand to hold. You just need somebody to get your back. Maybe you need to be that kind of teacher. You're working with somebody and they just need that sort of hard, let's get going. Come on, get up. Or you need that kind of teacher, right? Maybe you're somebody that until somebody is like, hey, you're messing up right now. You need to do better. And some of us need that kind of teacher. So if that's the kind of energy that you need, this is the mantra to chant. So let's do that together. Om Vajrapani Hum. 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 So I wanted to tie this all together really quickly. If you remember, I said that these three bodhisattvas represent the aspects of the Buddha and their teaching. These are three pillars that I think we all need if we're going to be teachers or we're going to learn lessons. And I hope every one of you wants to learn a lesson or teach a lesson at least at some point. I want you to think a little bit of what happens if somebody has all the wisdom in the world but no compassion. It's not pretty. Or vice versa, what happens if you are very, very compassionate but you're not very wise about it? You've seen a lot of people who maybe are taken advantage of or burn out, or maybe they're giving and maybe not the smartest of ways. Maybe they're enabling people. And then think about that one person who's got all the action and power in the world, but they're not very wise or compassionate. It's also a little disheartening. Maybe you have two of these. Maybe you have all the action and power and you have all the compassion, but no wisdom, If you're seeing what I'm saying here, if you're lacking in any one of these, it can be a disaster. I'd say for a lot of people, myself included, we have a lot of wisdom and we have a lot of compassion, but sometimes we fail to bring that into our lives or get off of our cushions. We could all use a little more Vajrapani in our lives. I really enjoy these mantras because it's a reflection and a meditation on what aspects are we lacking in the moment. It's a little self-check of, what do I need right now? What am I lacking? The other thing is usually they say that you keep your mala beads like your shadow along with you. Now, I don't advocate for any teaching that says you have to buy something. So either make your own malas or steal them. Ask for them for Christmas. If you have the money to buy them, do it. You can, but you don't need them. But I think having these as reminders, even if it's just going, do I need wisdom, compassion, or do I need to get off my butt today? I think can be a really great teaching. One thing that I've been using too is, there's those times during the day when we kind of endlessly, grab our phones. We don't really need it, but we're mindless. And I've been sort of using this as a replacement, and those times when I'm just bored, and instead of grabbing my phone, I'll just grab up my beads and be like, what do I need right now? And it kind of, it's that fix. There's not really a big difference. One of these things makes me more compassionate, wise, and powerful. I'll let you guys guess which one. So that's what I have today. I'm really hoping you can take some action out of this and use this in your own lives. Whether or not you want to believe that these bodhisattvas exist in the world or are just, a way to remember these aspects of the Buddha, whatever works for you. I don't think there's any right or wrong way to take them. So I talked for a very long time today. So we're not going to sit to do any extra meditation. That was our meditation for the day. But I do want to make sure that we can still do joys and concerns. So if there's anybody out there that has any joys for this week or any concerns for this week, I'll start while they're getting the mic ready. So this is the first Father's Day that me and my spouse are without my father-in-law who passed away last year. And also on top of that, their birthday is in 3 days. So this is going to be a really tough week for us, knowing that times of celebration for some are times of mourning for others. So I may need a little bit more Avalokitesvara this week. So that's going to be my mantra for the week. So, and I know I'm probably not the only one that has experienced some loss around this, where this time of year can be really tough. So that's my, I don't know if it's a joy or concern, but that's where I'm at this week. So.
I'm here for my weekly Ben Rudy update. He's making white blood cells from that stem cell transplant. So that is huge news. And please keep him in your thoughts. And hope it won't be too much longer before we see him here with that big old smile of his.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Shane, or Juansu. I have a concern. I lost my younger cousin, Tim, last Tuesday. Liver failure. It's been really hard, but just keep me and my family and his family and friends in your thoughts and your meditations and your prayers. Thank you.
Hello. Yeah, I have a concern. Yesterday, I was at a family event. It was really awesome. And I got a niece, 4 years old. She's the most adorable person ever. She's like at the small, like 1% of her size for her age. And she called herself fat and like said, and like, it was just really interesting to like hear somebody call herself fat. And like, my concern is I hope that doesn't turn into like a core belief. And because she's absolutely beautiful just the way she is. So I thought I'd share that.
I have a joy. Okay, it's kind of long. So I was in Colorado last weekend, last weekend, and then my friend's sister does spinal energetics, so she offered me a free session, and it taught me. So I was adopted, and it taught me that I have a lot of like ancestral trauma from my bio family, which I've never ever thought about, and I was like left in like a bundle of blankets. So one child policy, I'm never going to know my parents. They're never going to make themselves known. So I was like, how am I going to undo this ancestral trauma? And I got the opportunity to volunteer at the Grand Rapids Asian Pacific Festival yesterday. And I got to connect with that foundation. And then there was a tent for adoptees in like a resource center. So I got to connect with them. And then just other like cultural things. I've been trying to connect more with what I think my Chinese culture might want me to do and what I've been feeling called to, like Buddhism, just naturally. Like I think my bio mom has been pushing me towards it, because there was like this one moment like half a year ago where I just felt like, oh my gosh, I need to do these things. Like I'm finally not in college and like way too into myself. I can finally like expand and be compassionate and empathetic and all that jazz. So I'm just very thankful for being able to live in a community where there are a lot of resources that I can lean on when I don't have my family to lean on. My bio family, my family are incredible and they support me so much and everything. And my parents want to take me to China because I think it's very important for me. So I'm just very thankful. So cool.
Also, that festival is still going on today, and you might see me there today. So, anyone else? All right. Why don't we take a couple moments just to hold that all in? Oh, yeah. Yes.
Amy says her joy was this Dharma talk and how enlightening and moving it was, and it's definitely something she'll be using going forward. And she said also a joy that she might be getting 3 siblings placed with her. And yeah, so she said she's a foster mom, so that's why.
Thank you. I do want to get through some announcements. And Kunga, if you're watching, don't hate me because I'm going over time. We have an online meditation group that meets on Wednesdays, 7 to 7:45 p.m., and that's through Zoom. And you can get a hold of Kunga for more information on that. We also have our Avatamsaka Sutra study group. That's Thursday, June 13th, 7th and 9th. I think that's already happened at the temple, so I'm going to skip that one. And we do have the Grand Rapids Buddhist Temple Board meeting, though, that happens on June 23rd after the service. And all Sangha members are invited to observe that. There's also it's going to be in person, but there's going to be a Google Meet for that as well. We also have, and this is something that I'm excited about, on Sunday, June 30th, Kunga is receiving their monk ordination, and there will also be a potluck reception afterwards. And so the monk ordination service will start at 10, and then the potluck will be at 11. So I look forward to that. We also have our next silent retreat on July 27th from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. and we'll be here at the temple. I think this is our 3rd one that we've done kind of in a row here. And that'll be on Friday, July 26th. I also have a note that's been attached here, and I don't know if there's not a note on what it is. Oh, okay. Okay, so there must have been a change. So for the Buddhist-based recovery meetings, on Fridays, it's 10:05 for meditation and 10:30 for the beginning of the meeting. And meeting at Garfield Park and the entrance off Madison Avenue Southeast near the playground area. And it says to bring a lawn chair to sit, or you can also join via Zoom. That's for Fridays. Are the Mondays and Wednesdays still the same? Okay, so Mondays at 6:30 p.m. meditation, 7 p.m., and that's at the temple. And on Wednesdays, 6:30 at the Alno Club. And then I guess the Fridays have changed. Correct. Cool. I got it all in. I forgot the incense slide in the beginning, so I'm going to try not to forget anything else. That's my goal for today. One last thing. When you entered, you were given a handout that had all the stuff that I talked about. Take that with you. I meant for you to take that with you. Don't leave it behind. It's a nice reminder. Yes. Yeah, if you'd like to give that, go for it. Also, you can cut them out and make trading cards out of them.
Good morning, Sangha. My name is Ellen. Since you know who went over the clock, I'll keep this short. Dana is a word in our practice that means generosity. And of course, anything that you can offer the temple is wonderful in your services. Monetarily is also a great deal. We have Dana boxes at the end of the Dharma hall, both ends, and they take checks and cash. There's also a QR code you can scan, which will take you right to PayPal. If you're on YouTube, there's also a drop down that will take you to PayPal. If you go to our website, zengr.org, there's another donate button there. If you're wondering what we need in the pantry, Nikki is your gal. She will let you know if you're interested in paper products, tea bags, anything like that. Also, the potluck was mentioned for the 30th. We always need volunteers to set up and tear down. The tech guys are always looking for someone to help there. No one at the temple receives monetary compensation. Everything happens here because somebody has volunteered their time, energy, and money. So that's it.
Thank you. Well, I'm still going to make you do all the closing gathas, even though we're over time. Sorry. So why don't we stand? On page 9. For all unskillful action never committed by me since of old, on account of my beginningless greed, anger, and ignorance, born of my body, mouth, and thoughts, now I atone for them all. Vast is the robe of compassion, a formless seal of benefaction. I wear the Buddhist teachings for the benefit of all sentient beings. All beings, one body, I vow to liberate. Endless like passion, I vow to uproot. Dharma gates without number, I vow to penetrate. The way of Buddha, I vow to attain. And if we can face each other, we'll get one last bow. Thank you all. I hope to see you downstairs for some tea. We got time.